Hey everyone, it's Anthony Ramos here. I am so excited to be talking to a good friend of mine and a good friend of GLAAD, and he just happens to be on a brand new show on ABC called The Baker and the Beauty. Dan Bucatinsky, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm always so happy to see you.
I know. Well, thank you. It's so good to see you too. We go way back, so this
We
is
do.
this is fun. First off, how are you doing with at home? With the kids and just this whole new world, temporary world that we're living in right now.
I'm at the end of my rope. I don't know. That's the only thing I can tell you. If there was a rope, I'm at the end of it.
Yeah. Well, the
Because
good thing is, I mean, this show, The Baker and the Beauty is so much fun. I think, the beauty of the situation is that people are, watching more and more TV and I think looking for some, lighter, fun, entertaining stuff. And this
yeah,
show, is just that.
when we were shooting it, I mean, obviously we couldn't have predicted that we were going to be in the situation that we're in, but there is something so kind of delicious about a show that is one part family comedy,
Yep.
one part, romantic comedy, like Notting Hill. And then there's like a little entourage in there too. So it's kind of a mixed bag, but it really does feel like escapist fun. And I do feel like, I mean, my kids watch it with me and grown-ups are watching it. And I feel like it was a lucky, again, bad choice of words because no one's happy about the situation we're in. But in terms of what we're looking for in our content, it's that kind of escapist fun that I think is working right now.
I mean, it definitely makes you want to escape to Miami, that's for sure.
Yeah. And it
um,
makes you want to eat. It makes you want to eat and bake. Two things which I am
exactly.
doing way too much of.
So let's talk about your character. So for anyone that maybe hasn't seen it yet, or I think hopefully everyone has, because it is really a lot of fun. The show centers around this kind of international superstar named Noah Hamilton.
Yep.
I almost think she's kind of like the Victoria Beckham character, like very fashionable businesswoman. And then there's you who play her manager, who really is kind of like the keeper of the guard, like, holds the key and, that relationship very closely. I'm curious for you as an actor, what was it like for you to kind of play the other side of it? Because, you have a manager, like it's like to kind of get into that mindset.
Well, it's interesting. On the one hand, I've worn so many hats as writer and as a producer. Um, Lisa Kudrow and I have been producing for 15 years. So I've often been on the other side of it. We do shows where we are often like from web therapy to now 25 words or less. And of course, Who Do You Think You are all such talent driven shows that I've often been in a position where I am the facilitator to a celebrity in some way. I also played that part of Billy Stanton on The Comeback, which we produced
Oh
on
yeah.
HBO, which was her manager, but he was completely unhinged. There's something very fun about playing a manager who is as unedited and ruthless and doesn't give a crap what people think of him as Lewis in The Baker and the Beauty. On the flip side, he's really the closest thing to a dad that Noah Hamilton has because he's known her since birth. The backstory of Lewis is that he was the manager of her mother when she was a
Right.
model. So this is a guy who's seen her grow up since she was in diapers. And there's a real, and I'm a father of a teen girl, and there are aspects of Noah's experience on this show, the abandon that she feels as she's falling in love with this baker, that remind me of being the father of a teen. So I am one, in a way, I'm a momager,
Yeah.
like the
Look
tradition.
out, Chris Jenner.
All right, exactly. Just call me a Jenner or a Lohan. Maybe not Lohan, but so it's really satisfying on the one hand to play this character who kind of tells it like it is, and on the other hand, there's kind of this soft um, father figure in her life who is oftentimes relenting to what he knows his client, really, really wants. And the push pull of that, of wishing this baker guy would go away already because it's only causing problems. And at the same time, knowing how happy he makes her is a really fun dichotomy to play.
And obviously at GLAAD we love to see inclusivity and representation. your character, Lewis, we know is a gay man. And he also is harboring a little bit of a secret, not when it comes to his sexuality necessarily, but I think a couple episodes back, we saw that, he might be sick or, having some health problems that he's keeping a secret from everyone. So, I mean, what can you tell us about how that's going to kind of reveal itself, or maybe it won't?
Well, the last episode, there's a hint at Lewis having been dealing with something way before you meet him, which I kind of liked. I always love pre-existing conditions, whatever they are, in a television show. And we will start to learn what that is and how that impacts the way he's behaving. I can't say too much about it, although I do love the fact that it's not, he's a character who happens to be a gay man, of a certain age. I was very vocal with the creators of the show. I've played gay on so many different shows and in so many different ways. But I've always loved shows that treat that subject as the just happens to be. Among many things that Lewis is, one of them is a gay man. And then I found it sort of interesting that, because I always play dads or gay dads or somebody who wants to be a dad or trying to get married. There's something very interesting about Lewis, who's made his entire life about this woman, his client, and is kind of has been pushing his personal life aside for a very long time. And I think that that's something that's relatable to a lot of people who put their work first and sometimes don't look at fear of intimacy or not getting hurt when they had been hurt in the past. These are all very real things for a grown-up. And I loved the idea that we were dealing with a potential illness that wasn't necessarily tied to his sexuality,
right.
Which we will learn about, I think, in the upcoming episodes. And there will slowly but surely be the opportunity, not to spoil too much, but for the man who's been taking care of Noah for all of her life, for the opportunity for the audience to see the caretaker in Noah.
Interesting. Okay.
That's the best way to say it without saying too much.
No, that's a good tease. And I think, for you, as a gay man, I would love to hear, you weren't in this storyline, but, we did see a really nice storyline with Natalie coming out, young Natalie, played by Belisa Escobedo, coming out to her, very traditional Latino family. I thought it was, a really nicely done story, and I think, we're seeing it evolve. So what was it like for you to kind of see something done, very inclusively, but also a little differently than what we might expect?
Yeah, no, I was really excited by that storyline. I was very excited by the fact that in the same show, we were watching the very difference of a young woman who at age 15 knows herself so well and understands that her obstacle is not her own self-acceptance, which is what we were used to seeing 20 years ago, which, by the way, is exactly how I grew up and my coming out story, and probably very much what Lewis grappled with. So in the same episode that Lewis is describing to a date, sort of what it was like to grow up in Wyoming and then be married and then have to leave because he wasn't what people expected of him. And it was a very different experience. Simultaneously, across town, there's this 15-year-old girl who so owns who she is in a way that's so contemporary that her obstacle is more the family around her, how her parents are going to receive this information, which is a very modern take on it. And Belisa and I talk a lot about how that is very reflective of us, even in real life, what our real life struggles were with our identity. I really struggled in my teens and came out to my parents at 25, but told them that I was bi. And then it took another year or two for my parents to be like, all right, we saw the boys, where are the girls? And me being like, it was code. Why do I have to come out again? And as we learn as gay people, we have to come out millions of times in our lives. And Belisa talks about that as well, and she's much younger than I am. But even on set, our generational difference is something that's so interesting to me. and so visceral, and it's being played out in the show as well. The difference, I mean, obviously I'm a married gay man with 2 kids, but Lewis has a lot of that old baggage that he's bringing with him, and Natalie has this kind of confidence about her identity, and her only obstacle is the outside world, whereas when I was coming out, my obstacle was myself. So I love that that is being embraced and talked about in a show that's about so many other things.
Absolutely. And I think, it's so important because, you imagine, I think with Latin culture specifically, like there's certain topics that are not talked about. Sexuality, can oftentimes be one of them. So, if the potential for a family to see this show and, maybe even adopt that sort of openness in their own life is
Oh
incredible.
my God. That scene between, if you haven't seen it yet, it's a worthwhile episode 4.
Mhm.
Catch up on Hulu and abc.com. But episode 4 has so much of this coming out experience and people revealing the truths about themselves. And while Lewis is sort of revealing of himself on this date, you've got Natalie having this sort of revelation to her family, or a revelation for them. And then a father-daughter scene, which I have rarely seen as lovely as that was. I absolutely think, especially in communities where it is still a big stumbling block. It's so great to have representation on television of a family that that shows what the obstacles are, expresses the fears that parents have. Sometimes the fears aren't about like you're going to have such a lonely life, which used to be what people used to say. And nowadays you see obviously so many representations of gay people who can get married and have children and lead happy lives. There is a little bit of sadness in Mari that's about all these years I felt like I knew you and you didn't, there was a wall up between us, which is a very real thing between parents and kids. So giving voice to those issues is going to be a great thing, I think, for parents across the country, Latin or not.
100%. I was just thinking, you're back on ABC. I saw you on Instagram with Katie Lowe's a couple days ago.
Yeah.
How are you keeping up with all your former Scandal castmates? I would imagine you are.
We are a very, Baker and the Beauty cast is extremely close. We were living in Puerto Rico and shooting together for 5 months. We all speak Spanish. We all come from a Latin background, so there was a lot of bonding going on. But there is something about my Scandal family that will never end. We are very, very close. Katie Lowe's and I had never appeared on camera together ever, and yet we are like brother and sister. We have the same birthday, and so yeah, there is something about I love being back at ABC because we felt so well cared for when we were there, when I was there during Scandal years and when I was a writer on Grey's Anatomy. So I love being back on ABC, but there's really the Scandal family has been so supportive of the new show. We've celebrated our Scandalversary, I think, just a couple of weeks ago. And then a week later, I think our show premiered and all of them came out in droves to support. It was a very unique experience being on that show. And the bond that all of us have, having been through it, I think is something that will last a lifetime. And hopefully the same will be with the family that I've created in The Baker and the Beauty.
I love it. Well, Dan, it is such a pleasure. Thank you so much, everyone. Be sure and watch The Baker and the Beauty. Oh, look at that background. There you are. Now there's 2 of you.
I had to do sort of a shameless background because that way we can see there's my gang.
I mean, look at that cast. Why wouldn't you want to tune in?
And it's kind of odd to be staring at myself, just sort of leaning there. That's a really good suit, by the way. Paul Smith. I was so lucky to get to wear it.
Yeah, and you know what? Your character loves the combo of the leather jacket with the tie. I like that look. I'm gonna have to get on
Adopt. That. Yeah, it was fun dressing that guy, and he certainly cares a lot about fashion, as does Noah Hamilton. So there's another little fun layer throughout the show.
I love that. All right, everyone. Dan, thank you so much. So be sure and watch The Baker and the Beauty at 10 o'clock Monday night on ABC.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you.